Welcome everybody. This is the introductory note to the online course on masculinities and violence. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the course, but first of all I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Adam Baird and I've got a background in studying masculinities and youth violence in particular. Now what I wanted to do with this course was really bring to the forefront some of the main issues which link masculinities to violence, and I think it's one of the underexplored concepts and approaches to understanding violence in many spheres of academic life, but also in the practical world when people are looking to unpack scenarios of violence in their work and professional life and other areas that they might be working on violence issues. So what I really want to do is to give people a good theoretical base in understanding masculinities and give them some practical tools to understand how we can work with masculinities and violence. In that sense, I'm hoping it's going to be very useful for all of the participants on this course. Okay, a quick course description. So we're going to look at the origins and understandings of masculinities, and that is the construction of the male identity. What does it mean to be a man constructed in different social contexts? And I'm going to use this knowledge to explore the relationship between masculinities and what I call a range of violences. And when I talk about the range of violences, what I'm pointing to here are domestic violence, interpersonal violence, social, sexual, political and warfare types of violence. And I'm going to tie those consistently back into concepts of masculinities. So this course, I would say it's divided into a theory and then a practical set of data which I'm going to use with you and readings, etc., to understand masculinities and violence. So that first session, the Theorizing Masculinities, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. So the first session, we're going to talk about the origins of studies of masculinities, and especially we're going to look at power and domination. And I think here we really have to thank feminism for launching or providing the bedrock for us understanding and being critical of men, which gave rise to critical men's studies, which has given us a wonderful range and nuance of understanding meanings of masculinity. Then in the second session, we're going to look at hegemony and social construction. So what I mean by hegemony in this case is we're going to look at the concept of Robert Connell, which is called hegemonic masculinities. Why is it that certain constructions of male identity dominate, and how might they be related to violence? In the following session, we're going to try and unpack a range of masculinities. So we may have one dominating ideal of masculinities, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the only one. First of all, if someone's a macho man, they're not macho in every single space of their life. Maybe they're not macho in the domestic sphere, but they're very macho when they go down to the local bar. And also there is a consistent range of competing and different masculinities. So we can think about heterosexual masculinities and another range that we're going to touch upon in that session. Then I want to talk about somatic processes of the construction of male identities and male bodies. Now what that means is how are changes in the social world and how are constructions in the social world physically changing men's bodies. That's the somatic process. And an example to give of this is if you think of Superman or even Tarzan back in the 1940s and 50s as a comic character, and you look at the male body represented in those comics and you compare it to the action heroes in comics of today, you see a radical change in the muscular nature of the male body. So what's that all about? That's what we're going to tackle a little bit in that session. And then in the final session of what I call Theorizing Masculinities, we're going to consider the subject of emasculation. Now, emasculation is essentially where you strip away the components and the possibilities of a man constructing his male identity. So we're going to look at the impacts of emasculation on men, and I'm going to ask the question, is emasculation men's greatest fear? And at the same time, I want to ask people, is there a certain burden of masculinity? So is there something that men feel pressurized to live up to? It's a very interesting topic. And then we're going to move on in sessions 6 to 10 in what I call the masculinities and violence section, where we're really going to get down to individual elements of linking masculinities to violence. So the first one is talking about war and militarized masculinities and what I call the Rambo effect. Why is it that men are sanctioned to be violent in society and women are not? Why is it that most men are soldiers? So we're going to problematize that. Then we're going to look at domestic and interpersonal violence. So we're going to ask the question, what is it about the male construction of male identity which leads them to be the predominant physical abusers in the domestic sphere of both women and children. In the following session, it's a subject very close to my heart and something I've spent a number of years researching. We're going to look at social violence with young men. Now, why is it that the vast majority of gang membership is made up of young men? And why is the vast majority of homicidal violence, both in terms of those who suffer it and those who perpetrate it, committed by excluded male youth? Then we're going to look at a very difficult topic, which is rape, sexual violence, and female objectification. So we're going to try and understand abuse and rape and this objectification through a masculinities lens. What is it about the male construction that leads to these abuses occurring? And then in the final session is essentially going to be our wrap-up session. I'm going to be listening to you, the participants on the course, and when you flag up issues that you really want to develop in greater detail, we're going to come back to those and revisit them, and we're going to have a concluding session and tie up all the sessions in the course, and hopefully they'll be able to answer, and we can discuss and discover and explore any questions which have arisen which are of particular interest to you over the entire online course. So once again, I'm excited to teach this course. I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm delighted to have you on board and online taking the course, and I look forward to interacting with you. Thank you very much.